Okay, so let's now look at the larger data set of the cacti and find out if those students in Baja in the 120 Fahrenheit heat were finding any differences in the basin versus non-basin. I'm going to have us look at some simple things like freezing panes in spreadsheet, then determining the average and standard deviation in columns that have different levels of observations. Change the number of decimal points. We've already done that, but then we're going to build a histogram. I want to show you guys that because it'll take us into the normality of the data. And eventually we'll do a t-test on that so that you guys can see that. All right, so we're going to jump to the other tab here. So here we have the basin flat area. These are heights of cacti in meters. When you scroll down, I always find it really annoying that the column headings disappear. So very simple thing you can do. I'm sure many of you know about this, but you just go to view, freeze. You can freeze one row, but I'm going to freeze two. And then just puts a little block there as you scroll down. It's going to hold row 1 and 2 stable for you so that you can always know where you're at. So let me see here. Yeah, and Barbara and Jaron are having an interesting discussion there. Barbara says, what can you conclude from those results, the standard deviation with the windows and the collisions? And Jaron is saying you can't really conclude too much. It's more summarizing the data. It's giving you an idea of what's going on. It would just, as an early stage part of a study, it would tell you that you've got more variation on that safe glass window building. And therefore, that could be a number of things. That could mean that it is safer in the end, but it just had a couple rough nights with extreme outliers of data. Anyway, there's a lot of different things, but yes. So getting back to this one, maybe all of this will become clearer as we delve more into the inferential statistics in just a moment. You can scroll down. Now you're going to notice that the sloped cliffside, they only took 20 measures. And that's because they found out that the rocky cliffs on the side there were treacherous to walk on with big boulders and rattlesnakes. And it was not a good scene. So they were able to get many more. You can actually, I use shift, control, and down again. I can see there's 80 observations that they took or measurements that they took of cacti on the basin area. But they only did, like I said, 20 on the slope cliff side. Totally fine. It doesn't matter. I get this question a lot with folks. Oh, can I compare two groups, but they're uneven sample size? It is totally fine, all right? So very rarely are you going to be in a position to have exactly equivalent sample size of two groups. All right, so let's go, and I want to show you one other little trick tool kind of thing that I often use, which is copy. And then for me, I am on a PC, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do paste special transposed. And what that does is it shifts from my data being organized as a column to switching it the other way, rotating it essentially. And this will be very useful if you have a lot of data and you want to switch it essentially 90 degrees one direction or not. So paste special transpose may be useful. Let's get the average. Let's get the standard deviation real quick. Bear with me. I know you guys are maybe growing tired of this part, but let's highlight that. Let's go there. Average. Gotta highlight them, close out the parentheses, hit enter. Okay. Whoops, I totally messed that up. Put it in the wrong spot. There we go. Whoops. One more time. Third time is the charm. Slow it down. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so now you can just compare the average of the basin to the sloped cliffside. You can see that, you know, cacti are a little bit taller in the basin than on the sloped cliffside. Let's get the standard deviation just to make sure that there's not something crazy there. There was a question in the chat about why am I bothering to transpose the data? And really, there's no reason other than I thought it was cool to show you guys. It's personal preference. And a lot of times you do kind of just need to move data and shift it around in different ways. You know what? There's another great question. Does the data come out if you close the parentheses or not? No, it'll know. It's my OCD perhaps that I have to close them out. By the way, if you're wondering, when you highlight any cell with a formula, the formula is up here. And you can double check and make sure, okay, it's doing A3 through A82. That is indeed the range you want, okay? So you can look at those things closely, make sure you're in the right spot. In this case, you know, the really big question now that inferential stats are going to ask, or help answer, sorry, is when you look at that, is there a difference or not? Are, you know, cacti in the basin taller, significantly taller than those on the sloped cliffside? So this is sort of the money question, if you will. What size difference is big enough? Oops. And you can't just say what size difference is big enough to be considered significant. You have to say, given the variation in the two groups. Totally messed that typing up. Two. Or more groups, because of course I am giving this example, simple example of two groups, but you can do stats on 3 groups, 4 groups, or correlations, or chi-square. All those things we're going to get into later, but they're all going to ask the same question. What size is different? It is different enough that can answer this question of these dang cacti, okay?